Ladies, gentlemen, and miniatures of all ages, one of the biggest routes to being powerful and grounded too is through the mutation system. By default, you can have 2 mutations equipped at once, up to 4 maximum through the current Milk Molar upgrades. And we might even be able to have more mutations even further than this once we are more into early access and more things are added to the game. But right now, these mutations are one of the core parts of getting a lot of strength to your character in the game. So today let's talk about what every mutation is, what the actual perks on them do at maximum tiers and every tier, honestly, and not only how to unlock each mutation, but for any that there is an extra easy way to grind them out quickly, I'll go over that too. And of course, I'll note which of them are particularly strong mutations as we're going through them. Starting off then, I'm on creative mode to actually show you the fully unlocked mutations list in the game right now, but it is worth noting that the Guard Dog mutation, the Natural Explorer, and the Trapper Peeper mutations as well cannot reach tier 3 right now in survival mode. There are simply not enough mixer events or points of interest or creature types to achieve any of them at their maximum tier, so while we do know the values that these mutations give, and I will talk about them even at their tier 3 version, keep in mind that you can only have them at maximum tier in creative mode at this moment. Beginning with the fighting styles themselves then, Little Fist is your fist and fist weapon main mutation. This means it affects your basic unequipped punch hits, but importantly this actually affects both of the dual wield weapons that are labeled as claws as well, which are the Mighty Claws and the Northern Shredders. This is especially important to note because the unequipped bare fists cannot do a charge attack, which is like the big main thing with the Little Fist mutation. The main perk of this mutation then is Little Fist. When you hit an enemy with your fist, you gain 1 stack. Each stack gives you increased charge attack damage, stacking up to 15 maximum stacks. These stacks disappear if you do a charge attack, or if you get hit, or if combat ends. The actual numbers on this one are 5% increased damage per stack for the tier 1 mutation, 7.5% per stack on tier 2, and 10% per stack on tier 3, which means that you can get up to a maximum of 150% increased charge attack damage through this at maximum stacks and maximum tier. As well, at tier 3 of the mutation, you unlock the Fist Master perk 2, which makes not only the stacks generate twice as fast in general, so you get 2 stacks for every hit instead of just 1, but this also just adds flat stun value to every hit that you do with fists or the claw weapons too, which is genuinely quite good once you have the full mutation unlocked. As for how to unlock it easily, this applies to every single fighting style mutation we'll be talking about as they have the same conditions. You need to kill a bunch of insects with the specific weapon type mentioned in the mutation. These must be aggressive creatures, you can't just farm like aphids or weevils or gnats as an example, and these cannot be scripted auto-respawn enemies, with the only specific example for that I tried being the infinite mite spawning room that you have in the onboarding facility right at the start. Those don't count towards the kill count on these mutations, sadly. They have to be out in the world. That said, outside of that room, mites are still your best friend to kill for these mutations. They tend to exist in groups rather than only finding one at a time. They are tiny, they are low health, and they are aggressive, so they count for the unlock conditions. Once you have the resource scanner unlocked from the main story missions, you can then just search for mite parts and then follow them around to find mites. But they are pretty plentiful in the initial starting area in general, which makes it pretty easy. Next up is the Smasher mutation, which is much simpler. This is for clubs, meaning any weapon that does smashing damage. There are only a few of these at the moment, but you can tell if it is a smashing weapon by looking at this place here on a weapon, which tells you the damage type, and usually they say club in the description too. The Smasher perk itself then, the base part of the mutation, adds stun damage to every attack you do with clubs, with increased stun value per tier. Then at tier 3 you get the Club Master perk as well, which makes all clubs get a 20% bonus damage when hitting stunned targets, so it's a very nice simple synergy. More stun frequency and more damage to things that are stunned. For unlocking this one, nothing different here from the last one, just look for mites specifically and hunt them down with your smashing weapons. Then we've got the Javelinier mutation, and this one is actually pretty funky. The initial perk, Javelinier, makes thrown spear attacks do more damage. This is a fun way to play the game in concept, but when you throw spears, they sort of bounce around all over the place. The physics is not your friend. They disappear, sometimes they just delete themselves from the world when thrown, and of course it would also mean making multiple higher tier weapons to do effectively, and maintaining all of their durability, their upgrades, stuff like that, so it's quite the investment instead of just like making one weapon and then using it consistently. But Throwing spears does pretty solid damage, and this perks make thrown spears do an extra 10% damage for the first tier, 20% for the second tier, and 30% for the third tier. As well, it has a secondary effect where when you hit an enemy with a spear, any damage that they then do to you will reflect back and do an equal amount of damage to them for the next 5 seconds. Obviously, the ideal world is that you don't take any damage, which means that they also wouldn't take any damage from this effect, but this does mean anytime you do get hit while you're hitting enemies with spears, it at least does something in return. This effect is 100% damage reflect at tier 1, 150% damage reflect at tier 2, and then 200% damage reflect at tier 3. At tier 3 of the mutation, you do also get the Spearmaster perk added on top, which makes spear charged attacks do 30% more damage, giving you a damage boost outside of purely throwing the weapon too. For unlocking this one, again, nothing special compared to the other fighting styles, just use spears to hunt down loads of mites, which you can find on your resource scanner quite easily. After that is the Assassin mutation, which is incredibly powerful. This applies, for the most part, only to dual daggers and dual sickles, so every dual wield type weapon that doesn't apply to the fist weapon mutation, with one slight exception. Part of the Assassin perk says that it increases crit chance on dash strikes, and while the claw weapons don't technically count as daggers or sickles, they do have a dash strike as their charged attack, and this mutation does actually give that attack its bonus crit chance. That to say, let's get into the proper description of the perks. Assassin is 10% bonus crit chance on dash strikes at tier 1, 15% at tier 2, and 20% at tier 3. The secondary effect of this one is increased crit damage for daggers and sickles, and that is 20% increased damage for tier 1, 40% for tier 2, and 60% for tier 3, which is quite a massive bonus by the third tier. As well, when you reach tier 3, you get the Dagger Master mutation as well. This gives you 5% increased crit chance for 5 seconds after getting a kill with daggers or sickles, for just a nice little extra bonus as well. Like the other fighting styles, to get this one unlocked quickly, your best bet is just hunting down loads and loads of mites, which you can search for on your resource scanner once you have that unlocked. Moving on to the next one, we have the Sharpshooter fighting style, and this is the mutation that applies to bows specifically, of which there are only a few available. The main perk on this is Sharpshooter, which is increased critical hit chance on charged bow shots, specifically being 5% increased crit chance at tier 1, 10% at tier 2, and 15% at tier 3. When you get the tier 3 unlock for this mutation, you also get the Bowmaster perk, and this increases the damage of perfectly charged bow shots by 10%. A perfectly charged shot is when you release a bow shot exactly as it hits the full charge during the red flash of the animation. And again, this is easiest gotten by just hunting around the little aggressive guys like mites, search on the resource scanner, hunt them down, nice and simple. Next up is the Blade Master mutation. This applies to all sword type weapons, which is essentially any weapon under 1 or 2-handed that is listed as a slashing damage type weapon, as well as the Mosquito Needle too. This does count as a sword despite dealing stabbing type damage, but it is a sword, and so it counts for the Blade Master perk. This makes it so when you hit an enemy with a sword attack, it reduces their damage done to all things in front of them. This is actually quite effective for survivability. Specifically at tier 1, it is a 10% damage reduction, tier 2 is a 20% damage reduction, and tier 3 is a 30% damage reduction. So if you're looking for more survivability, this is actually quite good, especially in multiplayer, because one player having this perk can reduce the damage that all players take. This effect lasts for 5 seconds after you hit an enemy with a sword, so you do have to hit them at least once every 5 seconds to keep it active. And then we have the secondary perk for this as well, Swordmaster, which is a bit odd in the way that it's worded, but what this actually does is reduce the exhaustion timer when you hit an enemy with a sword. When you run out of stamina completely, there's a short duration before your stamina bar will refill, and during this, you can't do anything. The Swordmaster perk makes it so if the thing that empties your stamina bar is a sword hit, you basically skip this timer and just start to have your stamina go right back up, which is honestly really quite solid, especially if you are running something like a shield build with a sword in your other hand. To unlock this one then, same as the other fighting styles, you must be hitting aggressive creatures and killing them, and mites are the most plentiful, lowest health option. Then we've got our final fighting style, the Whittle Wizard. This applies to candy staff attacks, and there are only a couple of candy staff options right now, 3 technically if you count the unique version of one of them, but it makes it easy to explain what this affects. The main perk on this, Whittle Wizard, gives you an extra effect when a staff attack hits either a sizzling or frozen enemy. Against a sizzling enemy, they increase the sizzle damage over time that enemy takes for 5 seconds. Against a frozen enemy, it simply increases the damage that they take from the shatter effect, which is what happens when you get hit while you're frozen, or for an enemy when they get hit while they're frozen. For both of these effects, the increase is 50% at tier 1, 75% at tier 2, and 100% at tier 3. When you get tier 3 for this mutation, you also get the Staff Master bonus perk, and this gives you 5% increased critical critical hit chance when you hit a fully frozen or fully sizzling enemy. For unlocking it, again, like all other fighting styles, you do just have to kill enemies with the specific weapon type, and the easiest one that you can do that with that counts for the progress is little old mites. Now that we've gone over all the fighting styles then, I think it is a good place to mention that the Assassin fighting style is by far the strongest fighting style specific mutation, tons of strength from that, and the Little Fist is actually probably the second highest power gain from fighting style as well. Obviously this doesn't mean that the other mutations aren't worth using or that the weapons tied to them are weak, but in a video about mutations I thought that was a good thing to mention here, that currently the balance of mutations themselves is very skewed for the fighting styles. Next up then, let's talk about the combat ability mutations, first of which is Parry Master. This gives you stamina back whenever you get a perfect block. At tier 1 you gain 20 stamina, at tier 2 you gain 25 stamina, and at tier 3 you get 30 stamina. If you don't know what that translates to, your default maximum stamina in Grounded 2 is 100, so it's basically a third of your stamina at max rank every time you get a perfect block. It is a healthy amount of regen every time you do it. As for the unlock condition, this one is simply unlocked by doing successful perfect blocks. You can do this against any enemy in the game, you can do it with any weapon that can block in the first place, and because you don't have to kill the enemy, you can technically do perfect blocks against the same singular enemy 150 times in a row and just grind this out real quick, real early. You may not like to hear it again because I've talked about them a lot, but the best option is mites. Mites are the lowest tier aggressive creature and spawn in groups generally too. Multiple enemies attacking you means more opportunities to get perfect blocks. As well, if you ever mess up a perfect block, you will have the minimal punishment, as mites do very little damage compared to pretty much anything else that's aggressive. This mutation is solid for survivability, especially for either two-handed weapons or for candy stabs where blocking is your main source of defense, but you don't have the ability to hold a full shield, and this makes perfect blocks far more important. Past that, we've got the Ambush mutation, which is just absolutely cracked for generally existing in the world. This increases hits done to enemies who are not in combat. This means any enemy that does not start as aggressive will automatically have this trigger on your first hit against them every time. Any enemy that does start aggressive if they see you, you will have to sneak up on or surprise to get this effect, but it is genuinely so strong that it is worth doing that purposefully in a lot of situations. The actual effect of the main perk is guaranteed critical hits on your ambush attack. This is just straight up 100% crit chance, no fluff attached regardless of what weapon you're using. Crits are the secret to big damage in this game generally, and so a guaranteed crit with any weapon is super high potential if you use it right and stack the right things with it. The secondary effect of this then makes ambush attacks with daggers specifically have a ton of bonus crit damage. I've not been able to get these specific numbers for this one, but it seems somewhere around like 2 times the damage of a regular crit when you get the ambush crit with daggers using this mutation, which is a sort of insane increase. As for how to unlock this mutation, you will honestly just do it passively, as it's to perform ambush attacks. Every first attack against a non-aggressive creature counts as an ambush, so that will happen naturally, and the easy way to get this is to just literally whack everything that you pass while you're playing. Even if you don't plan to fully kill it, fully fight it, even if you don't care about the materials it drops, just give it that first ambush attack to gain 1 tick of progress for this mutation. After that, we've got the Frenzy mutation as well, and this one is very weird. You won't have it until you've completed the currently available story at this point of early access, so the unlock condition is quite simple in that way, but the effect is a bit more complex. When activated, this mutation lowers the timing window on your perfect blocks, making it harder to avoid damage without fully dodging it, but in return, you get a high chance to activate a buff on melee weapon hit. This buff is 5 seconds of 20% increased damage, as well as 5 seconds of minor health regen. But while it's active, you cannot perfect block at all. So especially against anything that is weak and menial, this is just sort of making it easier to get through them very quickly at a little bit more risk. But I would also argue this is an extremely strong mutation if you are running something like a heavy shield build with the Lady Guard shield that fully blocks all incoming damage, even on a regular block. So you basically build to avoid using perfect blocks, you build so that you don't have to use perfect block, and then you just get purely positives from this mutation. Moving on to the final combat ability mutation then, Guard Dog. This is unlocked by defeating mixer events, and if you haven't seen mixer events around, there's a pretty good reason for it, which is that there is only one mixer, and to my understanding, I believe it's only unlocked after you've finished the currently completable story missions, which means that you can only get tier 1 of this effect right now. What this does is specifically increase your damage during mixer events and defense missions, which is things like the special interaction that you can do with the ice cream truck for the icicles, and this increases your damage during these by 10% to tier 1, 25% to tier 2, and 50% at tier 3. With the fact that right now, there's pretty much nothing that you can do with this after you've unlocked it, and you can only get tier 1 anyways, I would say this mutation isn't much of a big deal to worry about until we have more content added onto the game that is, of course, relevant to this. Next up then, we have the exploration mutations. Natural Explorer is quite good. It is unlocked by finding points of interest. These are any of the yellow markings that come up on your map when you walk by them out in the world. Some of these are a little bit awkward to trigger, but essentially to unlock this, just explore around the park. If you see anything that looks like it would have a name, possibly even like a magazine that's on the floor, go walk up to it, walk around it until you get a pop-up in the corner saying it was discovered, and then you will get point of interest found. The effect itself is increased movement speed when you are out of combat, so it's only for raw traveling, it doesn't help while you're fighting, and this isn't fully confirmed, but Feelycraft seems that this does apply while you are riding your buggy, so I think it also increases your buggy's speed. The bonus here is 15% more speed at tier 1, 20% at tier 2, and 25% at tier 3, which is not bad at all. And with the fact that we have mutation loadouts, you can actually always just have a loadout that has Natural Explorer for when you're running around, then just swap to like a combat loadout. The second you're about to start fighting something really easily, click of a button, swap what you got equipped, and now you're ready for combat. That said, with Natural Explorer, the main thing here again is that you cannot actually unlock tier 3 in the current version of the game until more stuff is added in. The other exploration, Mutation, then, is probably the most generically strong one in the entire game, or at least it would be if you could fully unlock it here, which is Trapper Peeper. This increases crit damage, and as I've gone over, crit chance and crit damage are sort of the prime way to increase your damage in general. For the unlock condition on this one, it's quite awkward and RNG based, and there's simply no way to make it happen faster. When you first peep a creature, you will have a card pop up on your screen. You can check this using the bottom left menu on the Scab 2K wheel here, where you see creature cards. Whenever you kill a creature that you have previously peeped, you have a chance of upgrading their card to gold, which looks like this, at fully random. You can see the border changes on the card when this happened. As of this moment, there are 50 creatures that have cards in Grounded 2 if we include all of the Orc variations too, and you need 25 gold cards to get the first tier of this mutation, 50 for the second tier, which means that you have to collect the gold cards of half of the things currently around to get tier 1 of this upgrade, which is quite a tall task, and the gold cards of literally everything that we currently have for tier 2. The results of this are for tier 1, you get 20% increased crit damage. For tier 2, you can get 40% increased crit damage, and then for tier 3, once we can eventually get that, should be 60% increased crit damage. Then finally we have our survival mutation category, which is a bit easier to go over really. First up is Cardio Fan, which I am a really big believer in. This is unlocked by fully depleting your stamina bar, and it takes quite a lot of depletions to unlock and to upgrade, and there are a couple of ways to make this quicker. The easiest one that you can just sort of do passively while you're running around is that this effect is sort of counted when you deplete your stamina bar while riding your buggy. So if you just ride your red ant buggy, deplete your stamina bar while you're riding it by sprinting it until it runs out of stamina. Then, unlike when you're on foot, when your buggy runs out of stamina, you do not have to wait for the bar to fully recharge before you can use stamina again, which means that you can let it refill like one singular chunk of bar and then just sprint until it empties again. Do it as much as you can, and if you make a point of doing this as your method of movement while you're wandering around the map doing other stuff in the game, you'll get this unlocked and upgraded surprisingly quick. But the fastest way, if you want to just straight up grind it, is to let your hunger bar run out enough that you get to half a stamina bar, which is the thing that happens when you're at low hunger. Then just spam the dash command, the dodge. The dodge uses a big chunk of stamina, and when you have half a bar of stamina, you get through it quicker than if you had a full bar of stamina, so you can grind this up really, really quickly. The actual effects on this then are two separate perks. Hyper Stamina gives you increased stamina regen speed, specifically 15% faster regen at tier 1, 20% at tier 2, and 30% faster at tier 3. Exhaustion gives you a shorter exhaustion timer, which is the time before you start to regen stamina after you run out of stamina. Tier 1 is 10% faster, Tier 2 is 20% faster, and Tier 3 is 30% faster. So these combined just make stamina much easier to manage in general, which I find to be a big quality of life bonus for pretty much every playstyle, honestly. After that we have the Reliable Friend mutation, which is honestly really, really good when it counts, which is for other teams, meaning other players when you're in multiplayer, but also for buggies when you're in solo too. And I am so genuinely sorry for what I'm about to tell you to do, but this is undeniably the fastest, easiest way to unlock the mutation. In most difficulties of Grounded 2, there is no friendly damage, ally damage, friendly fire, whatever you want to call it, meaning you cannot hurt your friends and you cannot hurt your buggy. At any time, though, you can change the difficulty of your game to Woe mode in the game settings, which is the hard mode for the game. When you're on Woe difficulty, this enables friendly fire. In multiplayer, you can basically just sit beside a friend, knock each other down 30 times until you both have the fully upgraded mutation, but in single player, you can use this with your buggy. And, well, I feel bad showing you this, but you can just, empty your buggy's health bar by hitting them, then pick them up, and then instantly down them again if your weapon is strong enough, and then pick them up again, and then down them again. And you can just sort of loop this 30 times in like a couple of minutes to get the fully upgraded mutation very quickly, very easily. As for the proper effect of this, it seems to be 25% faster increased revive speed at tier 1, 50% faster at tier 2, and 75% faster at tier 3, which is a massive boost for revive speed. And if you are playing multiplayer and your friends are going down sometimes, especially during boss fights, this makes it so much easier to pick them up during active combat while dodging attacks and things like that. So for multiplayer, it's incredibly good. And for single player, you don't really need to worry about it unless you just really love your buggy being alive. And if you do love your buggy being alive, again, I am so sorry for telling you to just basically dump its blood all over the floor. Next up then, we've got the 2 candy-based mutations. Fresh Defense is unlocked by eating mint shards, which you can start to collect loads of easily when you have the tier 2 bust function unlocked. Eat 10 of these shards, get the full tier 3 mutation. What this does then is give you reduced sizzle status gain rate, reduced burn damage from sizzle when it applies, and it also gives you reduced gas damage taken in gas areas too as an extra bonus. Specifically, it affects all of these equally by 25% at tier 1, 40% at tier 2, and then 50% at tier 3. This one is really, really good against sizzle applying enemies. It's also obviously very, very good for exploring the fire pit area, which is just made of sizzle. 50% sizzle buildup reduction is a massive amount for just eating 10 mint shards one time. And while it's far from the only way to get sizzle reduction, it is one of the easiest and most efficient. We've also then got the spicy safety mutation as an option. This was unlocked by eating these spicy shards as opposed to mints, and again, these are very plentiful once you have tier 2 busting and can easily search them down with the resource scanner. This one gives you reduced chill status buildup, reduced damage taken when the freeze applies to you from a full chill bar, and then also reduced damage from the shatter effect when you reach tier 3, which is when you get hit while frozen. For the first 2 parts of this then, that is 25% reduction at tier 1, 40% reduction at tier 2, and 50% reduction at tier 3. But for shatter resistance, which is unlocked at tier 3, it's just 25% damage reduction from the shatter effect in general. Like the previous mutation, this one is fantastic for the chill buildup part of it, and especially when exploring somewhere like the ice cream cart. 50% chill reduction for eating 10 spicy candy shards is quite a lot of value for what's required, and it makes that area way less painful to exist in all on its own. Then finally, the last mutation is Mithridatism, which is a venom-based mutation. You unlock this by killing venomous creatures, meaning anything that actually applies venom to the player counts for this. These are somewhat limited at this moment, being wolf spiders, northern scorpion jr., and the fully grown northern scorpions. In the first game, this did also apply to orb weavers, but not in Grounded 2. So your best bet for farming this one up quickly is to look for scorpions on your resource scanner, and to do it safely, you want to target northern scorpion jr. specifically, rather than the big scorpions. The best way to do this with the resource scanner is to scan for scorpion chunks, scorpion pincers, scorpion stingers, and then scorpion venom. Pincers and stingers only drop from the big boys, so if you see a pincer and a stinger on top of a venom, you know that that's one that you might want to avoid unless you want a bigger proper fight. But anywhere where the scorpion venom itself shows up on your scanner should be an enemy that applies to this mutation unlock. As for the effect itself, venom reduction slows the venom buildup rate when you are hit by venomous attacks, 25% reduction at tier 1, 40% at tier 2, 50% at tier 3. And at tier 3, you also get the venom resistance perk for 25% reduced damage taken from venom in general as well. That just about does it for today, and everyone. Every mutation shown at maximum ranks, explained with the actual numbers as far as we know them at least right now, and then some talk about which ones are good and why. And a quick reminder again, that while there isn't currently a hotkey to switch these in combat, you do have proper loadout options for your mutations on the mutation screen, so you can hot swap between 4 different loadouts that you've decided on much quicker than like manually switching every mutation over, and you can definitely use this for some good combos, or even just having an in combat and out of combat set if nothing else. videos. I hope you've all enjoyed this and hopefully it helps you become the best teen that you can be in Grounded 2. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.